Hey everybody, it's your boy Crazy B here, and I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the recent Kathleen Kennedy interview and the future of Star Wars. Now, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I primarily collect Star Wars autographs. I love everything Star Wars. I absorb it. I love the books, the movies, of course the movies, but the books and the comics and the visual collections and everything. I love all of it. I'm just a big Star Wars fan, and I'm very passionate about Star Wars. And my girlfriend complains I'm a little too passionate about it, but I love Star Wars. There's no denying that. And I don't know if this will be mainly a Star Wars channel. I might just share some Star Warsy things that I do, and definitely like some Star Wars video game gameplay. Definitely not going to be a lore channel. I know that there's a lot of lore channels out there, but as a big Star Wars fan, and I'm sure anyone watching, this is a big interview that Kathleen Kennedy gave. Now, it's not big in terms of announcing big, grandiose plans for the future of Star Wars and Lucasfilm, but it does give us a little insight as to what the thinking is in the executive chambers of Lucasfilm. So she gave an interview on The Wrap. So one of her quotes is, quote, "The stories have been told within the universe over the last 40 odd years. And there's now the realization that this is a mythology that actually spans about 25,000 years. When you really start to look at all the different stories that have been told, whether it's in books and games," she continued, "we just need time to step back and really absorb what George Lucas has created and then start to think where things might go. That's what we've been doing, and we've been having a great deal of fun doing it and meeting with lots of different filmmakers and talents. There's so many fans out there and so many filmmakers that have been influenced by Star Wars for so long that it's a fantastic opportunity to get a sense of who wants to be a part of this. So that's what we've been doing." So basically, this is how I interpret it. Yes, Star Wars has been, the mainline Skywalker saga has been told for 40 years. But the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy have inspired countless works from comics and games and books and fan fiction movies, even though they probably will never acknowledge fan fiction. But there's some great fan fiction movies out there on the internet, especially here on YouTube. I hope they're still up. I hope they weren't copyrighted claimed, but I remember seeing a lot of those things and people really put their hearts and soul on it. And I think what she's saying here, at least that's what I interpret it, is that now they're going to say, look, we acted like we had a shiny new toy. We revived the Skywalker saga. We divided the fan base with the sequel trilogy. We're just going to take a step back. We're going to look at everything. Everything Star Wars. And we're going to pick and choose some great things to make into movies and content, which I think that is great news. I think that's the best news. But of course, execution is where it has to be. You can make any old republic. You can go 1,000 years into the Star Wars future. You can do everything. Execution is the key. But let's put that aside for a second. But now there's this realization that this is a mythology that spans 25,000 years. Now, I'm reading her interview on Games Radar. That's what they have in the quote. Yeah, but I want to know, why is this now a realization? You're the president of Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm has to give the okay for anybody to write a book, a comic, anything for the Star Wars IP. So I kind of want to know where your head's at, because in my opinion, the president of Lucasfilm, now being Kathleen Kennedy, should know that there are collections of books and comics that span so much of Star Wars that have been running, that basically they're Star Wars spin-offs. And I'm like, now you're kind of realizing that this mythology has been expanded upon beyond what George Lucas kind of has given it. And listen, you could say, well, it's not really expanded because it's not from the mind of George Lucas. There's gonna be George Lucas purists out there. If you're one of them, hey, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You could be, well, the sequel trilogies are trash and everything, and you could be fully on Legends side. You could be fully on the new canon side. I kind of fall in the side of, I like the Star Wars content I like, and I don't like the Star Wars content I don't like. I don't like the sequel trilogy too much. But I do like some of the new canon material that's out there. I love the Aftermath books. I love Lost Stars. It's one of my favorite books in general, not just Star Wars books in general. I love the new Thrawn trilogy. I still love the old Thrawn trilogy. You can love anything in Star Wars and you can hate anything in Star Wars. Just don't let it get toxic. Is it really worth that toxicity? Is your blood pressure really worth getting that high? That's where I draw the line. You know, I won't probably watch, when Star Wars Day comes around on May 4th, I watch the prequels and the original trilogies. Don't really watch the sequel trilogies. That's fine. That's okay. Maybe you don't watch the prequels, you watch the original trilogy and sequel trilogy. That's fine too. Like whatever you want to like. Star Wars is meant to be enjoyed. Enjoy it. For crying out loud, just enjoy it. But I think this speaks to the fact that they're probably going to explore more things in the grandeur universe and maybe treat it like it is a universe. What do I mean by that? Things happen in that universe independent of Luke Skywalker, independent of Anakin Skywalker, independent of Rey, independent of the main story. The following of those guys are the main story, but they're not the only story. I mean, come on. Like a war doesn't just follow one general. It has many generals. It has many fronts. Okay? World War II had a European front and had a Western. It had a Pacific front. Okay? The story of World War II spans so many people. So many heroes. And Star Wars can be the same. You can take things that exist in that universe, and they can be part of the larger scale story. Like Rogue One. Rogue One was a movie. I always say Rogue One was a movie to fix a plot hole. At New Hope, it was like, why would there be this one little thermal exhaust port in this massive machine? And a movie to fix a plot hole, but it was a great movie. You knew the ending, but they executed it so well. It instantly became my second favorite movie in Star Wars, right behind Empire. Empire is still my favorite. Can't change that. But Rogue One became my second. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to explore things that can fit into this grander story that we already know. Now, the grander story isn't the Rebels versus the Empire. It's the story of the Skywalkers and the living force and all that stuff. And I think you can create stories that play into that. I think you can create spin-offs that are self-contained stories. That's what I really would like. You can create sort of this one-off story that you can incorporate elements to for another trilogy. Like, let's say an Old Republic, right? Why not do like you could have like an old smuggler type thing, or you could have like a maybe Darth Revan movie. It's just a one-off. It's not a trilogy, but it can incorporate things that could create your next trilogy. So you take Darth Revan, you cast Keanu Reeves, because I don't think I can see anyone else in the role. You film the movie. It's all about him. The grand story is about him. But he helps set the state of the galaxy. And he's playing a part in a bigger story. And then your trilogy can be that bigger story with him taking one of the main leads. But you can start teasing it with just like a Darth Revan story. You kind of see what I'm getting at? And I think, I'm hoping that's that she's trying to do. That she's gonna say, look, we have the Old Republic. We're starting to lay ground at the High Republic. And then we have everything post Rise of Skywalker, which is completely empty. We can go anywhere with that. But I hope they also kind of go in the past, because you could really set up a basis for ongoing movies if you really explore the past. You know, explore the origins of the Jedi and the Sith and all that. You know, one of my favorite things of the Old Republic is, like, I don't even know if you call it the Old Republic. Older than that, I love the comics and the stories from when the Jedi were on Tython and they were studying the Force, and you had crazy pure Force powers, and then they had the war with the Sith. Explore that. That's worth exploring. That could be a great movie. It could be a one movie where we set up a grander ability for a trilogy in a character's self-contained story. So you can explore, like, maybe you explore the first ever Sith Lord. You know, in Legends that's Ajunta Paul. In the Dark Jedi, you can explore that story. Right? This one guy turns evil, becomes the Sith. The Jedi have a great war amongst themselves. He goes into exile and he dies. That can set up a trilogy of a great Sith versus Jedi war. And I think that's what they're looking into. They're saying, look, we got to take a step back and look at everything that's created, because I think they didn't do that when they greenlit the sequel trilogy, and that's what hurt them. They just thought, like, oh yeah, there hasn't been anything since episode 6. Let's throw 3 movies out there, make money. But it divides the fan base, because there was the Thrawn trilogy, there was Legacy of the Jedi, there was the Yuuzhan Vong, there were all those things. And now all those things can still be incorporated into canon through movies and TV and books, and less so books and comics. I think TV and movies are your best bet to follow canon. Books and comics can be retcon because they're not mainstream, so you really have to be like a Star Wars nerd like me to really follow them. So I don't consider them, I never really consider them like true canon, because a movie can come out and throw out everything set up in a book or a comic book. So, but if you enjoy them, read them and enjoy them, because I certainly do. But yeah, I think that's what she means. She's gonna take a look at, and I guess she sees that this so expanded universe, this mythology, is the work of George Lucas. It's inspired from the work of George Lucas, not necessarily him himself, but it comes from the original trilogy and the prequel trilogies, which came directly from the mind of George Lucas. But I think when they started the sequel trilogy, they didn't take into effect that there was all this content out there that people had been living on, between the movies, between the decades, and they didn't have respect for it. They didn't think that it would affect expectations for the sequel trilogy, and it did. And I think the worst thing they did is they didn't come up with a compelling story over what some of the stories through books and comics had already been established. At least that's my point of view. As Obi-Wan said, the truths we hold on to depend greatly on our point of view, and that is my point of view, and I'm curious to know more about her point of view. But clearly this interview signals one thing. She hasn't been fired, and she doesn't seem to be in danger of being fired. This whole thing about firing Kathleen Kennedy needs to stop. It's not going to happen unless Star Wars starts taking a really bad turn. Just because you don't like the turn they made doesn't mean the Disney executives don't. Everything at the end of the day is due to the bottom line. And if she's producing on the bottom line, she's gonna stay. She's not going anywhere. So get that idea of Kathleen Kennedy has to go out of your head. She doesn't. To me, what she needs to do is be better when greenlighting projects. First of all, you greenlight a new trilogy, make one movie. first before you even greenlight the sequel. The sequel shouldn't even begin to be written until the final cut of the first movie. And there were reports that The Last Jedi was being written as the Force Awakens was finishing up production. You can't do that. You have to see the final cut. The audience has to see the final cut. So the moment a new movie in a trilogy premieres, you can greenlight the next one. But never greenlight a trilogy simultaneously. Don't do that ever again. And hire some better writers. You know? And I think that's what she's going to look to do. I think she's really going to look to see, look, sequel trilogy has turned bad. We've had some hits. We've had some losses. You know? And why not, when you were looking at these directors who want to do Star Wars, because there's a lot of them, tell them, come up with something. Come up with a concept, a proof of concept. Right? Give me a baseline story that you want for your movie or your trilogy. A baseline. Who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? What era of Star Wars are we in? Are we doing the original trilogy? Are we in the prequel trilogy? Are we Old Republic? Are we far, far in the future? What's the story? Who's this protagonist? What kind of journey is he going to go through? Don't just hire directors based on what they've done in the past, because I don't think that's fair, because you look at the director of Rogue One, Gareth Edwards. He did a great job. Granted, there were some rewrites and some reshoots. He did a great job with Rogue One. He was never really heard of before Rogue One, at least not to me. So you kind of gave this guy his big break. And I think that's worth it. I think it's worth giving a director a big break. Sometimes that old, new, fresh ideas, that young, hungry blood can really make a great movie. Sometimes you do want to go with your established guys. Maybe you do want to give Steven Spielberg his chance. I think Steven Spielberg would make a great trilogy. I think he can respect the fact of what he's working on. So if Kathleen Kennedy can sit down with Steven Spielberg and say, you have the green light to create your own trilogy, I can trust Steven Spielberg. He has respect. And let's not forget, Spielberg directed Indiana Jones, which is also from the mind of George Lucas. We all think George Lucas just created Star Wars. He also gave us Indiana Jones. And he and Steven Spielberg worked together. Two legends of the business. And I think, you know, you can greenlit a Steven Spielberg trilogy. And say, yeah, you have the credentials. And you've worked with George. You have respect for George's ideas. And so greenlit whatever you want. You know, but I also think they should give it to young blood, male or female. But I think you should sit down and say, what's your pitch? What do you envision as your movie in the Star Wars universe? Not, we want to tell this story. I guess you can go, we want to tell this story, but I think if you hamstring directors and you never really give them a chance to really kind of put their footprint on it, that's where you get creative differences, and that's what kind of killed Solo, because you can see that when you watch Solo. Not saying Solo is a bad movie, but it could have been better had Ron Howard. Maybe give Ron Howard his Solo too. Give him a movie and say, yeah, look, Ron, you're an Academy Award-winning director. We trust you, and you really did a good job of kind of straightening out Solo, but you can see the conflict of styles. It tries to be funny when it's not, and then it's not really trying to be funny. So I would give Ron Howard a greenlit production to come up with his own Star Wars movie from the ground up, you know. But of course, take into consideration the lore that's been established all these years. Take that into consideration. You know, it's there for a reason. You don't have to necessarily do it, but, you know, take it into consideration, at least for a basis. You know, one of my favorite Star Wars books is Scoundrels. Basically, it's like an Ocean's 11. Han, Lando, and Chewie lead a group of thieves and bounty hunters against the Black Sun. And it's a real fun book. It's real Ocean's 11's like. Hey, I would love a movie like that. We can do one with young Han and young Lando. Give us Donald Glover and Lando. There's a Lando series which I can't wait to see, but you can use that book as a basis for a movie with the established canon. See? Anyways, I'm rambling a little on, but I'm a big Star Wars fan, and listening to what Kathleen Kennedy is saying is a big thing. She is in charge of Lucasfilm for the foreseeable future. She's not going anywhere. So, when she gives these interviews, we should pay attention because it's going to give us a hint of what they're looking at. And let's hope. Listen, do you have to like every movie? No. But let's hope that they can continue to pump out the content. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't all have to be a masterpiece. But keep pumping out the content. Keep making it good enough that Disney says, keep giving us more. Anyways, guys, it's your boy Crazy B, and I'm out. Catch you next time.